Facebook's good.
All right, I think YouTube is it's live now.
YouTube's
All right. Yep, and I think Instagram is up now. So cool. Good morning, everyone.
All right, morning. Let's see.
Dust off the Monday things here. All right.
Make sure my shirt's not too wrinkly. I'm
making
not
sure
hurt
mine's
anyone's feelings.
Wrinkled enough.
You know, there's some pretty traumatized people last month when one day my shirt was a little wrinkly. Welcome to the 034 Motorsport Live. This is our episode
214.
214. I'm Javad Chaudzi, and this is Nate Stewart. We're here to answer all your questions about all things 034. Ask your question in the comment field of the Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube comment field of your choice. If you ask us a question about an update, about when something's going to be done or finished, we might not answer it. Please don't get upset. We're definitely here to answer real questions where we can lend insight or information to any automotive or otherwise curiosity that you have. And last week, I think we only got through like half the questions.
We were slammed.
And we probably waded out into some update responses that we shouldn't have. So, but you guys start getting upset in the comments and stuff, and so, you know, we feel like we have to. But then we're also not answering real questions that people have asked.
Yep.
And that's not a good trade-off for us. So please be patient and answer us the real questions. If you want to ask an update question, go ahead. We just might not answer. We got the questions pouring in already. Someone's asking, B9 SQ5, any cons with going with a super duper, including turbo inlet, if never planning on going to a larger turbo? Yeah, you might have too much sex with all the sexual attention that you get. But if you're okay with having a lot more sex than you do now, after you install the super duper, then I would say it's a great way to go. It's just going to be a freer flowing, more efficient setup. I can't say off the top of my head exactly how much more efficient, how much more power you'll make with the stock turbo on say whatever stage you're on, but it also, you never know, you may want to do a big turbo at some point. There are going to be more big turbo options coming in the future, something that may appeal to you, and you'll be really well set up for that. I don't think the cost difference is that much more to go to super duper, and you'll be set for the future, along with the additional activities that you'll be receiving. So I would say do it, but our regular intakes flow very well. Also, they're just not going to be as accommodating of the big turbo upgrades. But you can even run big turbos with our standard intakes and still make pretty much optimal power. So. How much wear does a flat foot shift cause? I'm guessing ignition cut is what makes the flame.
Flat foot shift. Hold on. What car are we talking about here? How much wear?
Well, let's just say B8 or B9 or DSG or ZF8.
Yeah, and if we're talking, typically if you're talking flat foot shift, it's some aftermarket function added to a manual transmission car. As far as how much wear, it's all in the implementation and how it's done. They're very hard to get exactly right because it has to be ideally it's exactly when the clutch disengages just the right amount and when it re-engages just the right amount to do your ignition cut or whatever rev limiter you're using. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're slipping on the way out and slipping on the way in on the clutch. So you will get some clutch wear, but it's a little too generic of a question to answer specifically. As far as all the stuff we do with the DSGs and the autos and stuff, there's zero wear because it's all calculated and matched, and the ECU and the TCU are in sync and controlling it all.
Yeah.
So those are that's a very normal and happens thousands of times a day process.
Yeah, it's not a real wearing thing.
Yeah. As far as what makes the flame, again, that's going to depend on the tune. Generally, you're retarding the ignition a lot, and/or potentially doing a ignition cut on some of these, so you'll get some extra spice on the back at times.
Yeah. We've been woofed. It's been a while. Welcome. Will there be some lower control arms for Audi B9 RS5 with adjustable caster? That's not easy to do on the RS5 because of the really nice multi-link front suspension. The only way that we could do that would be to make the lower arms adjustable, and then you could move around.
Yeah,
Virtual
yeah.
center.
Adjustable caster is tricky. Yeah, it's certainly doable, but it's lots of math.
Yeah. So we don't currently have plans for that. It's something we could do if there was a lot of demand, but much easier to do on a strut car. Tell me more about the 4M Q7 3.0T supercharger tune. Very interested in going stage 2 on 93 and E85.
Do it.
I mean, if you're looking for more power, it's the way to go. The smoothness and drivability is maintained. I'm currently running stage 2 E85, or am I stage 1? I'm in stage 2, right?
You are currently stage 2.
Yeah, stage 2 on my Q7, and it's a riot. The car has, a wonderful amount of power. It's a properly quick car now, and it just rips, and it revs, it launches. It can actually hold its own on the freeway with a lot of cars out there. I've definitely surprised, or I think bummed out some people who thought their Corvette was a lot faster than it was, or whatever. Didn't understand why a Q7 walked away from them on the freeway. So it's a really fun car. Still smooth, quiet, reliable. Whatever it is that you like about the car stock, keeps all that. I also have our 20-inch by 10-inch wide ZTF forged wheels with 305 series tires all around. And that's a really great riding, very good handling setup. All the grip the car could want or need. So, yeah, it's actually a really fun car. I've got our springs and sway bars. Yeah, so I say go for it, especially with stage 2 being incremental. You just need to get the pulley, the clutch delete, and the tune. You're going to love it.
You get a lot of questions here.
Yeah, has the instructions for the Catch Can kit for the RS5 out yet? I don't think we've posted them yet, but they're being worked on, so they'll be out this week. I actually don't know, honestly, off the top of my head. So I know they were working on them last week. Hey guys, I do have a question. Why no file for ported blower on B8.5 S4? I mean, we do.
No, not for ported blower. I mean, yeah, it's our 2
We have a file that works.
So the ported blowers, first off, there's not a ported blower. They're all different. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's. I mean, I'm sure there's people making repeatable ports on blowers.
But there's different ones.
There's different ones out in the market. All of the testing we did, the ported blower means the blower is going to move air through itself more efficiently, and it'll generally get you a little more boost for a given pulley ratio. That's already being accounted for in the tune. There's a map sensor that's reading that after the blower. So, I mean, it's all there. The tune is already accounting for that. There's not a, orders of magnitude shift in your volumetric efficiency all of a sudden that you're way outside of the models within the ECU. So the 2+ stuff we've got has always worked fine with those.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that already get knocked out?
Yeah, there's some update questions. Let's see. Will we be getting Klimax merch? I need to update my Tinder pics. Honestly, I had not considered that. That's
it really should kind of tie into something. Yeah.
We need a cheeky Klimax shirt that will make women think you're a raging pervert. I think that could be a good seller.
Really, the only solution.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. No, that's a good idea. Thank you for that. Someone says more 034 parts arrived this morning, and then they go into an update question. Yes, we are working on MPI. More info in the future. When What should I look for before buying an RS5, and what should I do for a first mod? I'm currently in the market to buy one. Well, first off, congratulations. I think that's one of the hottest, best Audi platforms on the market today. I think in the last 6 months, I've convinced 3 people to buy them. And then the tuning on top of it from us is just takes the car, makes it substantially even better. As far as what to look for, I just think, if you want to take it to a shop and get a PPI, a pre-purchase inspection, I'd recommend that. We do those here at ZTF Automotive. But as far as like Achilles heel issues, I think you want, those have the system for the suspension, the DRC.
We're talking RS5?
Yeah.
Yep.
So you want to make sure you don't have any codes or issues with that.
Yeah, there's some weirdness. Depending on the year, there can be steering racks.
Active hydraulic system. You want to make sure you don't have any issues with that. Steering racks can be problematic. Rear diffs can be problematic.
Yeah.
So as long as the car doesn't have any codes and it's not making any weird noises, it should be fine. They're overall very reliable cars. I think they have some of the same water pump issues as the 3.0T. But they do seem to have a more robust motor as far as the failures on those are much, much less.
Yeah.
And as far as a first mod, I think probably a Stage 1 tune is really going to wake up the car. They have decent power stock, but
really especially paired with the TCU.
Yeah. And then, our full suspension catalog, intake, intercooler, those are all going to just and then eventually, if you want to do the 720, it makes the car into a weapon. So if you want like one of the fastest, smoothest, most luxurious cars on the road, that's a good way to go. Apparently burned out the clutch pack in my B9.5 S4. If I buy a more aggressive clutch disc, will the transmission need to be retuned? Does clamp pressure needs adjustment? The first thing I'd ask is, what tune are you running? What TCU tune?
We haven't seen a need for a more aggressive clutch disc on these. A healthy transmission with, not destroyed clutches. I can chirp second gear in mine on a gear change. Like they're.
What's the deal with yours?
What do you mean? Like it's
in your car?
I've never had a clutch pack issue.
But your car has hundreds of thousands of miles. Right?
Yeah, well, the 107,000 miles on it.
Okay, so you're on 107. But on the stock clutch packs, but that's like 80,000 miles of hard tunes.
Yeah, no, it's
developing tunes.
Developing tunes, all kinds of extra spice in there. But I haven't seen a need on any of these supercharged builds to have any kind of upgraded clutches at this point. So the thing will rip the tires off on launch, and like I said, it'll, with the right tune, it'll spin in a second.
Can he respond on what TCU tune he's running? Yeah. Because we just don't see it on our tunes. If you're running our tune, then everything wears out and goes bad at some point.
Yeah, it just could be that you had some other failure or something else that led to this, but.
Are you running a modified exhaust on your shop 4MQ7? No, not currently. We are working on some ResX products for it, but those are mostly just change the sound. The factory exhaust is very free-flowing, and it is a little quiet, so I wouldn't mind having a little bit of sound to it. It's currently whisper quiet. But no, for the time being, just a stock exhaust. And it's a Q7, so it doesn't need much. We are working on some intake solutions for the 4MQ7, which will dovetail into our tuning program for the 4MQ7. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Good morning. B8 SQ5 Stage 1 ECU TCU. Is the TCU tune optimized for sport mode only? Dynamic mode seems confused at times, seems more clunky and search for gears in a strange way.
Also, Will York.
Yeah,
I don't think it all got transferred over here. It is. I'm not sure.
No, it's definitely not
it's
just
not,
dynamic.
yeah, it's not optimized just for dynamic. We are going through and revising the AL551 stuff. That's the generation of the transmission in there.
Yeah.
So I would suggest if there's some specific feedback, send it over to tuning at. Let us know with as much detail as possible, and we'll make sure that is it's very likely already being addressed, but we want to make sure we hit everything we can when we do the update. So just shoot an email to tuning at with as much detail as you can provide around your what it's not doing that you want it to do.
Yeah, but we do have a tuning coming, tuning update coming.
Yeah, big updates are in the works.
Benefits of doing springs, retainers, head studs for the EA839. Well, there's two things. So the head studs give more clamping force on the cylinder head to keep the head gaskets from leaking. The factory head studs, head bolts, when you turn up the boost, do start to stretch. So every time you have a combustion event, it's almost like a stick of dynamite going off inside the combustion chamber, in a space about this big. A space that would fit in the palm of your hand. A massive explosion. And so that creates a ton of pressure that pushes up on the cylinder head. And stock head bolts are fine for factory power. They're even okay for like probably stage 1 type stuff. But once you really start turning up the power, the size of and pressure of the explosions essentially doubles over stock. And that puts a lot more force on the factory head bolts, which if they even stretch just a 10,000th of an inch or some very small amounts, the amount of clamping force is reduced. As the clamping force reduces over time with the stretching, the pressure is no longer contained in the combustion chamber, and combustion pressure will leak from the combustion chamber into the water jacket of your cooling system. And so what happens is you start smelling coolant, you start losing coolant, and you don't really know why. And the reason is because the head gasket is no longer being clamped with the right amount of force. So the head studs that we sell are made from a steel with a much higher tensile strength, essentially double of what the factory head bolt is. And so these head studs made with a much higher tensile strength chromoly material can withstand the forces of combustion. They don't stretch. They keep the maximum amount of clamping force down on the head gasket. This is a solution typically that we recommend for anyone who's running stage 3 tunes, especially the high output files. You don't necessarily need to run out and do this, but once you start having the coolant consumption issue, then it's time to do it. Thankfully, it's not a catastrophic failure. You can keep driving the car, but you're going to have to stay off the power until you get that done. Valve springs and retainers allow the engine to rev higher, and so there's a problem with all valve springs and retainers that at some point the spring isn't stiff enough or the retainer is too heavy. And so it essentially creates this, that toy, the paddle with the ball and the rubber band on it. And so, what you normally want is the paddle and the ball to be touching each other. But if you start going fast enough, the ball comes off the paddle and starts bouncing. And that's what happens when you get valve float, is the camshaft is actually slapping the spring down off its seat, and the spring now the spring and valve stay open longer than they should be because they're not touching the camshaft lobe anymore. So it'd be the difference between kind of like, bouncing a ball and slapping a ball. So by reducing the mass of the retainer, which reduces the amount of inertia in that assembly, and increasing the spring force, it allows the valve and retainer assembly to continue to function at higher RPMs. So that's what springs and retainers do. We recommend that also for anyone who's consistently revving their engine higher. When you get valve float, you start losing power, because instead of air flowing in and out of the combustion chamber or pressure being held in it, it's just staying open too long.
Yeah, it manifests itself in very fun and interesting ways. You can either be misfires, it can just be a massive nosedive in power on the top end.
You see this pretty much in all Audi motors. We initially really started seeing it in the 24 valve VR6, but all these motors with the rocker arms do float. Usually in the 7,000 to 8,000 RPM range. They'll
and it depends on boost too. Boost plays a huge factor in it.
Well, boost aggravates it, right? So you have pressure in the port pushing down on the valve. So you need to offset that pressure with a stiffer spring. The spring's the only thing that's pulling the valve shut. So yeah, this is aggravated. A lot of times when I've seen it, when I've been tuning over the years, it's like the engine just go like the engine feels like it's revving into mud.
Yeah,
it's just kind of it just loses power, even though it's still revving. You just see the power drop on the dyno.
All your data starts looking weird. The motor starts being much less of a motor and more just a passive blob of metal.
So what do we see for the 3.0 T motors? Do we have a special tune for that, or?
I'm sorry, I was zoned out for a lot of that. For valve springs, or are you talking?
We don't have a tune for valves. We don't have a valve spring tune.
No, not specifically. Not anything that would, because it's one of those. Sorry, I was telling someone. It's one of those supporting mods, but we don't have a specific tuned path for that. It's a nice to have at this point to ensure you're in good shape with it. So. But no, there's no one of the reasons for float you can get into is the turbo. The turbine side is getting restrictive enough at the top end that your EMAP is getting high enough that it is basically holding that valve open. It's having a hard time pushing against the spring itself.
Which is exhausting.
Which is, you don't want to just keep upping the spring pressure just to cram a higher and higher level of exhaust manifold pressure through there. There's a very quick diminishing return there.
Does an air intake assist with bottom end responsiveness?
It's the other one.
Possibly, but the way an air intake functions is it allows more air to flow in the engine. And when you say bottom end, I'm assuming you mean low end power band. So say from like 2,000 to 4,000 RPM range. That's typically not where you see the big benefits of an intake. You see the benefits of an intake at higher RPMs, where the higher revolutions per minute require more air to come into the engine. So the difference between, say, 3,000 RPM and 6,000 RPM is you have twice as many combustion cycles at 6,000 RPM. So that means the intake has to feed twice as much air into the engine to make the same amount of torque as it does at 3,000. So intakes and free-flowing exhausts and things like that almost always benefit the high end of the power. The higher you rev, the more you need that.
And despite the myriad of marketing materials you'll find on the internet that just show this big step in power everywhere with an intake, it's all about how much flow and how efficiently it can flow. You're not going to get the same improvement at, like Joe said, 2,000 RPM as you will at 4 or 7, just because you've got volumes, multiple volumes of that same air coming in.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good analogy for that, but
you go to the straw analogy. You can you can breathe through a certain size straw. Normally just sitting on the couch or something, but then you try and run and you're trying to breathe through that same straw.
So that's a good example. Let's say you're breathing through a straw that when you sit on a couch you can breathe fine, but when you sprint, you cannot breathe enough through the straw to support your oxygen needs. And so you go with a straw that's twice as big. You go from a 1/4 inch diameter straw to a 1/2 inch diameter straw. And now when you're running, you can breathe enough through the hose. Does that make it easier to breathe when you're sitting on the couch? Probably not. The 1/4 inch straw was enough to breathe through. It wasn't enough for when you were running. And when you run, the difference is your heart's beating faster, your lungs are breathing faster, so you're having more breaths per minute than you do at idle on the couch. Yeah. So that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So
and even
just because it works for when you're running doesn't mean it makes it easier when you're sitting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how your engine
if you're struggling or you can feel resistance when you're sitting on the couch breathing, then that filter is just too small everywhere. But that's usually not the case on any of these motors.
I was out in California last week where I rented a B9 S4 for my trip. Aside from the upshift speed and feel, the car felt and sound very boring. What mods should be done to wake it up? Well, you're right. The stock, the car is
they're pretty soft.
Boring.
Yeah.
But even with a stage 1 tune and an intake and an intercooler, it's going to completely transform that car.
And TCU tune, the stage 2
TCU tune. It's going to completely change the character and increase the power and performance. Then you can add some exhaust mods. We have our ResX products for those. You're gonna hear the exhaust note. You're gonna feel the power and acceleration. Then you start doing some of the handling modifications. You're gonna get faster steering, more sensitive feel to the steering, and you're gonna get a lot more cornering grip. And the car is gonna go from boring and stock to honestly just a riot. I think if you want to watch some of the videos from Midlife Mods, he's done a great job of completely transforming his sleepy stock B9.5 S4 to something that he was out at the track with recently and doing street class time attack against Porsches and other cars, and BMWs and things like that. So yeah, they're boring. That's literally why we exist.
Yeah, if they were perfect and just a riot out of the box, we'd have a lot less fun turning them into what you want.
Yeah, are they boring stock? Yes, you bet your butt cheeks. That's why we're here. So we make them fun to drive, and that's really the 034 Motorsport mission, is to take these cars, make them a blast to drive, keep the factory quality and reliability, but make it drive like as fun as a BMW or a Porsche does. And yeah, that's what we do. So I would start with tuning, like we always say, and go from there. But once you combine the tuning, the brake, and the suspension mods, it's a completely different beast.
Yep.
There's so many questions. Can we just clear out some of the update questions, because I'm having a hard time. We have so many legit questions I need to get to. First and foremost, thanks for making such good products. You're welcome. I'm enjoying my Stage 1 E85 Stage 2 TCU. I live in Maryland and it's starting to get cold here. Should I switch back to 93? You don't have to. If you're kind of hardcore, you can stay E85 all winter. In general, E85 doesn't have the same type of cold performance. And when I say performance, I mean starting, cold running.
Yeah,
not wide open throttle performance, but it's just not as smooth and functional as gasoline is. So you're going to have harder starting. It might be a little grumpy when the engine's stone cold on driving. Once it warms up, it shouldn't matter.
It'll be totally normal.
It'll be totally normal. But, if it's 10 below, you might have to start your car 3 or 4 times. You might have to. And that's relatively normal with the 85. And it's really why you don't see widespread adoption from the OEMs on E85. And even the E85 cars that were out were flex fuel, which would allow you to run gasoline in the winter if you wanted to, if you didn't want to deal with that. So it's up to you, but I think you'll have just a smoother, easier experience running 93 this winter.
Yep. That said, we are always, refining the 85 files as much as possible to get, the best balance we can with the colder temperatures.
Mm-hmm. For MQB chassis, do you like to run a little more camber up front or same front and back? And generally, you can use more up front.
Yeah.
The cars are nose heavy. They have a lot of weight up front. And so you're going to get, more rolling forces on the front of the car than the back. So, yeah.
And it comes
on
into
a
play,
street car.
It comes into play too with what you're running for caster, if you've got any caster mods.
Caster, your sway bars, you know, things like that. So, out of curiosity, why didn't you release the TCU update for the B9.5? Isn't it the same transmission? When should I expect to have that available?
It is almost the same transmission. In that the software, the hardware is essentially identical. The software under the hood is entirely its own thing. It's a very, for whatever reason, sometimes they go through and reinvent the world to do all the same functions, and that's the case with the B9.5. They went and restructured a lot of the software layout inside the transmission, and all the way down through how the shift tables are done, the shift timers, pressure calculations, all that is just done a different way. So we have to go back, or we have to go through and give it its own, treatment. It's not the same under the hood. So yeah, the transmissions feel the same, but the functioning nuts and bolts underneath are completely different.
I have an old 034 Stage 2 tune on my 93 C4 S4. That's awesome. When should it explode? When will you make new tunes so I can stop wearing? I don't. There's nothing wrong with that tune.
I don't think it's going to go stale.
No, the tunes don't just go bad.
Yep.
No, I mean we now have cars that have been running those tunes for 12 years or more.
Not more than that.
I mean, we released those in like 08 or 09?
No, we were in the old building. That was 06, 07 stuff.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, some of these tunes are
or 05 even.
Going on 20, 20 years out in the market. So no, they're good, solid tunes. They're proven. Those engines don't really blow up either, so you're gonna have every other problem.
All the other problems. Your N75
window
valves,
regulators.
Your ECU. They do unfortunately like rot internally.
The ECUs are like 35 years old.
Yeah,
now.
there's a ribbon cable that kind of falls apart in there. The barrel sensors can go bad in there, or map sensors and all kinds of other unrelated things to the tune. Ignition components are.
But you have nothing to worry about as far as the tune and the quality of the tune. It's as good as
obviously been working for quite some time for you.
Yeah. Should I run the race or street tune for the DL501 on a road course? Will it affect the balance of the car mid-shift?
That's going to be a very personal preference thing. I run the race tune almost exclusively, that's just the tune I prefer, and I track it all the time with it. I don't feel that it upsets the car mid-shift. I mean, you're generally not full throttle through a corner. But I mean, even if you are, it's such a quick transition. I've not been, in a situation where the shift has like unsettled the car in any way.
Yeah. And just the fact that it's a DSG, there's really no. There's no misbalancing.
It's a super fast transition, and it's not not jolting. It's just a little quicker shift.
So it's really going to be up to your personal preference which one you like better. But neither will be any difference as far as upsetting the car in mid corner. What are things I should look for and make sure is sound before tuning? Just had my vacuum hoses and water pump replaced on my B9.5 S4. Like supporting mods under maintenance. It'd
be good if you guys included like with stuff like this mileage that comes into play with some of this, because we'll start recommending things like injectors, kind of have a lifespan, ignition components, and obviously make sure you're on that correct, like spark plugs, your whole ignition system has been looked at.
I mean, you could always do plugs on coils, from us, the ones we recommend. But something to consider is you can just flash your car with a tune, and then you can run a log and send it to us for a health check.
Yep.
And that there we would see any kind of issues with injectors or anything like that. So, but no, I mean, as long as you have a well-maintained car, your car is going to always have issues, whether it's tuned or not.
Yeah, they always need care and feeding.
Yeah. What are the benefits of the TCU for the B8.5 transmission?
Very many. I mean, it's everything from launch control that doesn't release clutches on launch, to proper clutch management. Shift speeds are way faster.
Yeah, torque management.
Torque management's way better. You need it for any ECU tune, just to raise that torque limit, to have a properly functioning ECU tune. Even stage 1, you will need the TCU tune to get full potential. So there's a huge myriad of benefits. The B8.5 2 specifically had a very low shift point. So they dropped it for whatever reason from like 7,000 on the B8 to 63 or 6,400 on the B8.5. So you get like all of the extra power up top, which is where that engine makes its peak power. You can't get there normally on a stock TCU. So there's a ton of benefits to that one in particular.
Does your logging tool also log transmissions?
Mm-hmm. It can. It depends. Yeah, okay, if you want to log before tuning with us, we generally don't do that because that's not really the tool's intent. And depending on the transmission, whether it needs to be patched or not for the software to log it. But we technically, yes, we can log transmissions and do that a lot here.
Yeah. How often do you recommend cleaning your intake systems and how? If you're referring to an intake filter, we do offer a cleaning kit for that. Depends. We've talked about this before. Depends where you live and how dusty it is.
Yep.
If you drive down a dirt road, half mile every day, you're gonna want to do it regularly, probably like 3-4 times a year. But you can kind of see all the dust and crud, building up on the filter. Mm-hmm. If you live in a city and maybe once a year, every few years, but you just want to kind of keep an eye on the filter and see if it looks dirty. If you're someone who likes to maintain their car and keep it clean and keep it nice, say just do it once a year just for the heck of it. But just like when you detail your car, you detail your filter too. But we don't have a set interval. I think if you live in the desert and Dubai and there's a haboob that rolls through every few weeks, probably just buy some extra filters and have those on hand. Yeah, this question number 1, I'm not sure. Do we have a good idea of
no idea
what
you're
about?
even asking?
Okay, we just did 2.
Yep.
Will you be incorporating individual cylinder protection on B9 3.0T, or do you already have it? Referring to IE's recent update for protection. We saw what IE did on it. It's actually a cool technical implementation of some code inside the ECU. And then we've sort of been watching what people have had to say about it, who have been using it and who have had it kicking on and interacting. And basically, from what I understand, you can add to this.
Sure.
They added some functionality so that knock isn't just looked at kind of cylinder by cylinder for the whole engine, but it focuses on one cylinder and will basically put the car into a limp mode if there's too much knock activity on one particular cylinder.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Is it'll start pulling power if one gets too spicy.
Our immediate, and this is some idea that single cylinders seem to fail a lot on these motors, and so if you could target one cylinder, you could stop the damage, before it gets too bad or whatever. I think our thoughts initially were that this is probably going to false trigger way too often, and it's just going to result in these events that put the motor in limp, but didn't really need to be because of noise or conditions that weren't really damaging to one cylinder, but because the system's overly sensitive and overreactive that users are just going to have these limp events all the time. And that, I think that is what's happened is we've seen a lot of people complaining about how often it kicks in and it's too sensitive. We've also seen people who feel like these false events are somehow saving their motor and preventing them from blowing their motor, although they're not really doing anything about it, you know. So we don't really see a reason to do it. If we felt like we did, we could easily implement something like that as well.
Yeah, it's.
But for the time being, our tunes are safe. We don't have to rely on any.
I guess I'd like
extra feature like that.
Yeah, I think the question really is like, what is the metric that they use to determine, you know, why that feature was needed? You kind of have to like A/B or blind test. Like, you know, you had X amount of damage before you implemented this feature, and now you've got X amount of damage after. You know, there has to be some sort of like, quantifying data to kind of determine that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they would never release this information, but if they had some kind of data on how many engines failed before this and how many engines are failing after this, then we could all determine how effective it is. The bottom line, they get to say it's a safety feature and it makes their customers feel better, then it's a win for them, whether it actually does anything or works or not. We also know that they employ NDAs with customers who blow engines. That's not something we do. So we really don't hear about that, but they will pay people out and make them sign an NDA so that it doesn't get out there when an engine blows. We've never done that, so I guess everybody gets to hear about when our engines blow up.
Yeah.
And we're fine with that just because we will take care of the customer anyways, and we just don't want to be known for silencing people, although we've been accused.
We keep getting accused of it, and it's.
But anyways, so you know, we will add any safety features that we think are needed. We still maintain our tune as the safest on the market, and we work very hard to keep the factory features that are there optimized and functioning. And really, bottom line, if you have all the factory safety features built in and you have good base calibrations, it's a safe tune, and the factory knock system is more than capable of preventing engine damage if something's going wrong. Huge thank you to Eric, Sean, and the calibration team for helping me troubleshoot some fueling issues on my B9 S4.
Awesome.
Can't wait to start spending my money on fun mods again. Well, great to hear that we were able to get you sorted, and I know what you mean. It's way more fun to mod than to fix. So,
yes. Yeah. Maintenance is boring but necessary.
Yeah. I'm disappointed in the new Klimax B9 tune. Shift in manual mode is now smooth as stock, and I want back brutal shifts. Yeah, it is weird. It is weird. Well, the problem is the shift isn't really smooth. The shift is just so fast and short that you don't even feel it.
Incredibly well optimized and balanced for your pressure gradients, your torque requests, and all that. Yeah.
We struggled with that initially because of what you're describing, as well as the no farts. You know, it was like, well, people really like feeling the slam and the fart. You get the fart slam. It's pretty exciting, and that is worth something. But ultimately, we decided to just make the car faster was the best way to go. B9.5 RS5, trying to decide if looking into a mech unit swap to enable TCU tuning is reasonable. Is this something 034 could help with? Provide a step-by-step process. Any barriers to coding?
I mean, we're certainly open to work with you and help you. I don't know how much we can get into the specifics of it to know exhaustively exactly all the right hardware combos and what you can and can't do. I mean, I know from a general scope of what we've tuned and looked at, but usually there's other venues and transmissions you can go pull parts from that are going to be way easier to find perhaps an early model RS5. So, I mean, yeah, that said, no, we don't have a step-by-step. It is totally reasonable to do it. You can swap the TCU or that's the whole valve body in these things essentially. And you can recode them. You can, do an immobilizer match to them. So all that is totally within the realm of possibility. But no, we don't have a to B guide for it.
Yeah, but we'd be happy to help you.
We're certainly happy to help you out with it. And if you've got some specific questions or, want to run some stuff by us and see what we've seen.
And it is a viable solution.
Yes.
Once you have the right mech unit, then we can flash that. When are auxiliary radiators shipping? So if you want to email contact@034motorsport.com, we'd be happy to get you a shipping update. Those should ship very soon. We were just waiting on one little part. Yeah, but they can give you an ETA, the latest ETA. I don't have that off the top of my head. Can you make a low output stage 193 for the B9 for the people who want that extra 0.4 extra reliability? Something we hadn't discussed.
That's always a sliding, scale of options. So.
I mean, we really don't see a lot of reliability issues with stage 1 cars. Not any more than stock.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, so I really don't think that's necessary or helpful. I don't think it will make you any safer or reliable. So, and we have to be careful getting into too many files. Every file that we have has to be maintained, encoded, and ported, and it's just a lot of work. So we need to stay a tuning company and not a software file maintenance company. So that's why we are resistant to having a million different files. Each one is a spinning plate that we have to keep maintained.
Mm-hmm.
Monoballs still on the burner for the 034 upper adjustable control arms. Yes, they are. We are working on those and ensuring that they're a great quality product. What can you guys see in a health check data log that would point to a weak injector? Is there data that a customer could monitor with, say, VCDS?
It depends on the car you're talking about. It'll be anything from fuel trims to that's going to be one of your first indicators. Obviously, misfire counters are another. That's generally where you're going to see it. Again, it's going to be vehicle specific on exactly what we're looking for, but we do get a lot more data with most of these with our logging tools than you're going to be able to get with VCDS at all.
Yeah, VCDS is just really slow.
But yeah, you're generally going to see it in I think fueling trims for the most part.
Is there a possibility of using the DL501 tune on an EU A4? They use the transmission for just about every other model over here.
Yes, it's possible. Shoot tuning at I'll have to look at it. Shoot tuning at a request with as much info as you can, and hopefully your software box codes. That'll help us dig into it and confirm or whatever we can for you, but might be able to look into that.
Question number 2. We've answered this so many times. Can we provide a clip out of from I know we've done this in the last month or two. So, someone's asking, this customer has a B9 S4 Avant. Why is there, by the way, cool car.
Mm-hmm.
Wish we had that. Why is there such bias between tuning companies? I've been waiting for Black Friday sale and I'm left without a clue as there is so much information, not much helpful info on what separates 034. Maybe you can just tell him the name of the video to search for, Sean. It should come right up if you do that. Well, first off, we're here. You're talking to us. Yeah. I'm not aware of any other tuning company that does anything like this that will answer tuning questions live on the air with the president and founder of the company and the head of engineering. But our tuning and calibration philosophy here at 034 is professional tuning calibrations that maintain the safety and functionality of the factory ECU, maintain the smoothness and quality of driving experience as the factory, with substantially improved performance and driving enjoyability. And then we work on adding additional features and functionality that the factory doesn't have through advanced features, through our SPI mobile app. We have excellent support. You can send in logs through the SPI app so that we can do health checks or help troubleshoot any issues with your vehicle. And then we are committed to continual improvement. We do free releases quite often, especially on these newer current models that improve function, features, bug fixes that are absolutely no charge to you, the end user. And then we support a full line of upgrades to go up to, the maximum, level of power that you could ever want. Even if you don't want it now, you may not want 750 plus horsepower now, but you'll have the options to do it with full support from us, industry leading. So there's a number of tuning companies in the market, and it's not like the other options are bad, and some of them are better than others, but we work very hard at being what we believe is the best option in the market for your tuning, driving, enjoyment, and safety of your vehicle. And again, we're here every week to answer questions, just like we are now. All right. I want to take a moment before we run out of time to discuss this beautiful piece of carbon fiber. It's a very big, high-flowing carbon fiber product. This is our B9 RS5 S34 intake system. It works with our new carbon fiber turbo inlet for the twin turbo RS5, and features a massive super duper intake. You can see it's about the size of my head, and I can actually fit my whole arm inside here, and I'm now air filter man.
Yep.
I should have been this for Halloween.
Yeah, you should.
But this intake is a full 3.5-inch diameter flowing into each turbo inlet. There are billet aluminum turbo inlet adapters to bolt the flanges that bolt to the turbos, and then a small silicone coupler tightly connects the carbon fiber plenum to the flange.
You can see the metal rings inside here for added security when you're clamping.
And then this filter shroud installs like this in the car. Careful, Nate.
Sure does.
And all the horsepurs go through here, and the turbostor sounds come out there. So we are releasing this today.
Currently available for purchase.
Currently available on our website. A couple of you have been asking about this incessantly for months now.
As if we.
I could also be, turbo inlet man.
It's like a crab claw or something. We have to come up with some new names.
I should have been this for Halloween.
There you go.
Only if we had production units in stock. Anyways, just I'm joking around, but these are freaking big, high-flowing parts, and easily support stage 3 power levels that we have now and into the future. So just some quick numbers. 55% increase flow over stock, and 82% increase in flow over stock with the TTE 720 flanges. Yes. So you can see the factory turbo inlet size is that much of a restriction. The whole super duper Insuction bundle.
These are 720 flanges.
These are the 720 flanges. Now I cannot stick my arm through this, but I can sort of get my fingers in there. It's kind of kinky. So the Insuction bundle, which is the whole thing.
Yeah.
49% increase over stock and 73% increase over stock with the 720 flanges.
That's for the X34.
That's for the X34.
Oh, sorry, that's the X34. And the first 5582 was for the S34, and the P34, which is our plastic intake option. So if you already currently own an X34 or a P34 for the RS5, we will sell you just the parts to make it super duper. But with the P34, it's a 48% increase over stock with a 72% increase with 720. So you can see these are all excellent flowing systems. The S34 adds about 10% onto the regular intake systems once they've been super dupered. So yeah, it comes with stock turbo adapter flanges, and then you can buy 720s if you'd like. And then we also include these really sexy little billet engine cover risers that lift the front of the engine cover up just a little bit to give more room for all the girth, because the stock engine cover just couldn't handle this size. So, and again, available now on our website at a special introductory price of 10% off. And we will be quoting shipping. Well, it looks like we're quoting shipping mid to late December. So, why should you order it now? Well, the sooner you order it, the sooner you'll get it. And so when those those first production units come in and we assemble them, they will ship to the people who ordered it first. And we do have a set amount of inventory coming in, and it is possible that it'll sell out. So if you want to wait till mid to late December, you could find yourself trying to order it and it being out of stock again. So if you want to get in line, now's the time to do it with the 10% off. And of course, the introductory pricing won't last forever either. So by the time these are shipping, I don't think we'll be having introductory pricing. So now's the time to jump in, and it's very reasonably priced. I price all this stuff myself, and I looked at everything on the market, and I think we're the best value by far. Especially dollar per performance, we blow everybody else away. All right, let us know if you have any questions about that. We only got 4 minutes left. Let's see. In the C8 Corvette with the DCT, you can hold down both paddle shifters and go into neutral and rev. Is that a feature that could be brought for B8?
It not in quite the same way. There's some limitations just from a implementation standpoint from the steering wheel itself, in that the module on the steering wheel only transmits one paddle state at a time. Holding both is a implausible thing, and it won't send that information to the TCU essentially. So that's step number one. Now, I've actually had intrusive thoughts in implementing this feature in some other ways, but it can be done with other inputs. So it's not.
It's come up before.
Yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Haven't had a lot of reasons to do it though. Not a lot of people need to clutch kick. They're all drive Audis around. So yeah, it's certainly possible. I was actually just talking with the guys, I think last week about it.
Yeah. I don't want to shy away from this stuff. Somebody's asking. We released our PCV Catch Can kits a few weeks ago, and we had we quoted that they would be shipping early December, but we had some units come in early, and we shipped 26 kits. That then we immediately found that there was an issue with some of those kits. And so we contacted everyone pretty much before they released it, before they received them in the shipments. Again, this was just a handful of RS5 customers who were shipped early, and we caught the issues. We've already corrected them, and these will be resolved, longer term for any other units that ship. But someone's saying, why do we release early? Well, the reason we release early is because people beg us to. This is kind of one of those examples of the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Everybody asks you for everything, but the only way for us to release stuff without any issues would have been to hold it, to test it longer, then do beta testing. And since none of these issues with the catch cans are mission critical, that they don't affect, they're not going to damage or hurt the vehicle, we take some risks sometimes by releasing things early. And then it does open us up to mistakes making it to the customer, which in this case is what happened.
If there's any variance in like final production units and that kind of thing.
So, you have, then they go on to say, very curious how there are any issues after 3 years of R&D. Well, because, and I don't know if it was 3 years of R&D, I don't think that's true, but to release a product, we have to do 5,000 things right. And if one little thing gets screwed up at the end, this is what can happen. So the product is top quality. It does perfectly solve the problem. It is the exact solution the car needs. And there was a small QC error that made it out to customers, and we corrected it immediately. So that's kind of always the chance you take when you're an early adopter. We always stand behind any issues or mistakes that we make, and we correct them as quickly as we want. Do I think it's okay? No. I didn't make the mistake personally. I'm pissed that any mistakes are made. It's embarrassing to me. I do expect us to be the best in the industry, and we are. But when we also kind of bend over backwards to accommodate customer needs by releasing products early, it does open us up to some of this stuff. So then the only thing we can do is jump on it as quickly as we can and make sure customers are taken care of. So not only did we fix the problems, we gave customers extra store credit on top of it to make up for the inconvenience and disappointment of not having a perfect experience. So, we continue to kind of walk this fine line. We do take some of these risks, but I think, if there were some people that were really crabby about it, and I get it. They're RS5 customers, and I think some people just like to hear themselves complain too. But again, not proud of whenever there's any issue, not proud of it. It's not something that I personally am proud of or like. But overall, I'm proud of what we do. We do have excellent R&D and QC, and again, this was just related to a handful of RS5 customers. If you have been contacted, then you were one of the affected people. If you haven't heard about this, you don't need to email us. You don't need to ask us about it. The rest of the kits are still slated to ship in early December, and that's what we're going for. So yeah, and again, it's an excellent product. You know everything that you need to know if you had an issue, and chances are you've already received the corrected part. So anyways, okay, well, looks like we're out of time.
Oh, yeah.
I think we did pretty good this week. We got through most of them.
We have a folder that we didn't get to, but yeah. Well, not quite as swamped as last week.
Yeah.
And then next week, I think we're going to be at a little different time. It's still to be determined what day exactly.
I think we're shooting for Tuesday for now, but it's Thanksgiving week, so schedule's going to be a little up in the air. So thank you again for joining us this week. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.